morning, church. Welcome to Crossroads Online.
Yep. We're glad you're joining us today. We just have a few announcements that we want you to know about, some things that are coming up. And so the first thing is we put out an update video this last week, and we want to make sure that you have a chance to see it. It's going to lay out some different things to expect with our kids' classes on Sunday mornings beginning, what it's going to look like for whether it's toddler or nursery to preschool to elementary. We want to know, or want you to know what that's going to look like so you know what to expect, where to go, what to do, what to bring, what to look for. So that's out there. But also in that video, Matt is laying out what, for adults and the adult service what that's going to look like as well. So make sure you look up that video. It's going to be on the Facebook page for Crossroads, and we'll probably share it to other groups if we haven't. We should share it.
I think it should be on all the groups that we currently have.
Yeah.
But we know there's a lot of you that have said, until kids stuff is back up, we're going to continue watching online, and we're thankful you've been able to do that. But as you come back, there's a lot of things that are going to look a little bit different than they were maybe before all this started. So we want to make sure that you just know what to expect, to know what's coming, to know what time services are, just all those details that, where do I take my kids, like you said, just there's a lot of small pieces that if you know those in advance, it's going to make your experience when you come back and listen in person that much better. So
I think one thing especially want to highlight for you though, is that need to continue to register online, right?
Yeah,
just because kids aren't going to be in the room doesn't mean we can just show up.
Yeah, that's going to be a continual thing, at least for now. Hopefully we won't do that forever, but until we know who's in what service and space is still limited with distancing and everything like that, it just really helps us be prepared for it. And also so we don't have to turn people away when we shouldn't get full.
Yeah.
Because we don't want that in there.
Right. Some other things that we wanted to do is tell you today is the deadline for those baby bottles for Ray of Hope. So if you had taken one of those and you haven't brought it back to the church, please bring it by now. Well, not right now, but after the service, at some point, or even if it's throughout this week coming up, we can make sure they get it.
Or if you want to take one today, run out to your car, fill it up with the glove box, and then drop it by the church. We do have that option too.
Yeah. Or you can just write a check if you want to put it in a box. They'll take whatever, whenever. So if you have that though, bring it back. We'd like to start getting those back to Ray Hope so they can start depositing their money and be ready.
Also, things coming up. Life groups are starting soon. Kind of that September 13th date for everything else. We're starting life groups for adults. And so maybe if you've thought about joining a life group, maybe you've been a life group in the past and you want to join this year, those signups will be up. Hopefully this week, all those will be live and ready to go. And so if you think about what night works for your family, is it kind of same night as kids and student programming while they go to their program, you go to life group. Maybe it's a Wednesday night. Maybe it's a Zoom that you can Zoom in with one of our Zoom life groups as well. And so there's lots of options for that. Look for those signups this coming week.
And whether you're new or you've been with Crossroads for a long time, this is just a great way to connect on a different level. We don't have Sunday school classes right now, so this is another great way to really start getting to know and get back into the habit of meeting together, encouraging one another. I love Life Group Time.
And I think especially with a series like this, I've thought several times, like if our life groups were meeting through this Redeem the Screen series to talk through, like how has this impacted your family? What have you seen? What are your battles that you're fighting? I think we may have missed starting life groups a little bit sooner, but for each week, Matt brings us sermons and series that challenge us, and then we get to go to life group and talk about those and work through those together. So it's just a special time with friends.
It's good. It's good. With that sermon series, we're in week 3 of our Redeem the Screen series, and it's been good. I've really enjoyed it, but man, the challenge for using the devices that we have for God's good. I mean, I know it's the way you're supposed to do it, but it's still hard to create those practices. So it's just eye-opening to be told this is really what we're redeemed for.
And it's so easy to get it wrong.
Right.
And so to be able to step back and say, we're going to try this again. Use it for good, and God's going to use it for good. It's a special thing.
Yeah. I think when we did those New Habits, that series, this would have gone really well right out of that too. So I'm glad you guys have been joining us for this series. I hope it's been a blessing to you. And then maybe you've been seeing a change in yourself and your habits with devices. So.
We're excited for week 3. This morning, we're excited to jump into worship with you guys. If you hadn't had a chance to grab your communion, go ahead and run and do that. maybe during these first couple songs so you're ready after Matt's sermon to take that part of service. Also remember you can give offering online at makingcrossroads.com/give through the Church Center app, or you can drop it by church, however you want to do that as well. But we're excited you're with us this morning.
Let's go to the big room.
Let's go.
Were creation suddenly articulate with the How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. Let's sing it again. And how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice. Let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. And how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. And age to age he stands. His time is in his hands, beginning and the end. Praise God. We just worship you this morning, and we give our hearts to you, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning, Crossroads Online. It is good to be with you. It's good to be together in this environment. And I am so excited that you woke up this morning, got out of bed, even in this kind of not traditional church environment, but you are here with us. We're excited about it. I would love if you just kind of comment all the way through the sermon. Participate in that way. We know we can't greet each other. We know we can't talk in person, but through the comment section in this feed is the interaction that sometimes you don't even get through a sermon. So I would love for you, if you have not participated, to begin to participate all the way through the rest of our time together. As a church, it's our vision to connect people to Jesus and to love our community. A couple weeks ago, we started this series, Redeem the Screen. And it's not an anti-technology series. It's not a against screens sermon series. It's not anything like that. It's recognizing that screens are all around us. They're not going anywhere. They are there. Technology is advancing. Screens are becoming more and more a part of our life. And so it's asking this question: how can we take something that is around us all the time and use it to disciple us? What are creative ways that we can talk about using a screen or a device or anything that's around us to disciple us and help us to become more like Jesus? This word redeem, kind of in the simplest state, it means to take something that is broken and make it beautiful. And that's the whole heartbeat of this series, to take something that is broken in its worldly state and use it with a Jesus focus to make it beautiful. Together, we've been talking about Romans chapter 12. In Romans chapter 12, Paul is writing to these early Christians in Rome, and he says, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed. And conform is just fitting into the mold of the world. Transform it's a choice. It's a discipline to be transformed. Paul tells us that it begins in our mind. It begins in our mind, that we're not to be conformed just to the world around us, but as Jesus people, we're to be transformed by him. Last week, we looked at the dangers of comparison. And if we just compare ourselves to others, then we'll miss out on God's design for us. We'll miss out on the design that God has placed uniquely in each and every one of us. But maybe we don't use the gifts that Jesus has given us because we're not really sure where we stand. You see, having an unclear foundation, it makes it hard to live those gifts out, or maybe a lack of clarity of why are we supposed to live this way. I want to pray this morning, and we're going to jump right into this. Father in heaven, I'm grateful for our time. I'm thankful for those that are tuning in, and participating along with us, God, as we continue to discover your word in this new season. As we continue to figure out what it is that you're doing in the middle of life, I pray that in each and every one of us, that you will be transforming us. God, I pray that your word will be cultivating in us a truer sense of who you are and to live like you. Father, I pray this morning that as we sit in front of a TV screen or in front of our phone or some sort of screen, God, that we will recognize that you are redeeming it in this process. You're using it for good. God, I pray that that will be a normal pattern of our life. Jesus, I'm thankful that even as broken people, as sinful people, this morning we can sit here with the hope of heaven because of what you did on the cross. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Guys, have you ever went shopping with a list from your wife? The next question, have you ever went shopping without a list from your wife? Let's say hypothetically, your wife says to you, I need you to stop at the store on the way home, and I need you to pick up some things for dinner. I was thinking about having spaghetti. And your response is, can you text me a list? Sure, be happy to. You get to the store and you decide, I am going in and I'm getting the things on my list. You would find things like ground beef and spaghetti sauce. Of course, you would need the spaghetti to make the spaghetti. On the list, you find out that she wants to have salad and garlic bread alongside the spaghetti, which makes sense. And so you're given very specific details about getting romaine lettuce so she doesn't have to tear it apart, or you don't have to tear it apart. Healthy vegetables like tomatoes and broccoli and cucumbers for on top of the salad. She also wants croutons to go with this salad. She gives you just a little bit of freedom when she says, pick a dessert to accompany the dinner. And so, of course, you pick a giant brownie log with M&Ms on top. The little bit of freedom that you have within the list, you, of course, execute to perfection. You see, if you're given a list, you get exactly what is needed. Not to be forgotten is the Parmesan cheese or the shredded Italian cheese that goes on top of it when you're done, if you're that type of person, or the garlic salt that's mixed in with the meat as it's cooking. Depends on what type of recipe person you are. But if you go to the store and you're given a specific list, then you stay consistent with what the recipe is. You follow the directions, and when you follow the directions, you get home and your wife is thrilled at your purchases because you have followed the list. Now, I know we're not all list people, are we? Sometimes the lists frustrate us. They seem to box us in. And so let's say you go to the store and your wife gives you the list, but you know what? I know she gave me that list. Surely I can remember it, right? Surely I can remember it. And so I leave the list in the car and I run into the store and I grab a cart and I begin to move up and down each aisle. And I remember she said spaghetti. Well, to make spaghetti, you need spaghetti sauce. Sitting not too far from the spaghetti sauce, you pass by the barbecue sauce and you think, you know what, I think I was going to smoke something this weekend that I need barbecue sauce for. And, you know, not to make an extra trip, of course, you get the barbecue sauce while you're there. You think about spaghetti and meat sauce or meatballs and you think, well, I mean, I have to go and I have to get some ground beef. But while you're there, you see the ribeyes that are on sale. Well, who can pass up a ribeye that's on sale? No way. Of course, you have to get the ribeye. Right? Of course. As you make your way up and down each aisle, there's more things that seem to jump into your cart. As you can't remember the exact instructions of what to get and not to get, you know that you and the kids will love oatmeal cream pies and fudge rounds and Little Debbie's. They were on sale 2 for $5, so of course you had to get 4, correct? You stroll past the frozen section and you find the Fat Boy ice cream sandwiches and the stacked DiGiorno pizza. Why not, right? The frosting looks good. The new flavored Lay's potato chips look awesome. You remember that, oh yeah, we're making spaghetti, and spaghetti is extremely messy, so you get the industrial size pack of napkins that will last a small country. You remember something on the list about bread, so you stroll up to the garlic bread only to find garlic breadsticks that are filled with cheese. I can't not go with filled with cheese. You forget right before you're about to cash out that you need coffee for the next morning and that you never picked up spaghetti. So, of course, you go back to the noodle section and you pick up rotini. Depending on who your wife is, that classifies as spaghetti or not. Some it would be rotini and not spaghetti. Some it might just fall under the umbrella of noodles. You see, if you go with the list, you get the exact desired outcome. But if you go without the list, it might be more fun. But when you get home, she's going to ask questions like, where is all the stuff for the salad? To which you quickly respond, it's right here. And things probably don't go so well for you, right? Why? Why might they not go so well if you operated without the list? Because the list, it keeps us focused and consistent. It keeps us focused and consistent. And you and I, we live and we move around in a world that is moving in all different directions, but most of them are moving away from Jesus, right? Most of them are moving away from Jesus when so much of what we see on our screens is pulling away from Jesus. How are we supposed to live like Jesus regularly? As Paul is about to write, and the old hymn that sometimes we sing, they will know we are Christians by what? By our love. You see, if you have a Bible, we're again in Romans chapter 12. And in Romans chapter 12, beginning in verse 9, there's a bit of a transition. There's a bit of a transition. Now, we've talked about how Romans 12 is a giant transition in the whole book. But in verse 9, there's a bit of a transition where Paul, he goes from explaining to us how we are to live as a body of believers, how we are to be transformed, and then he shifts into what that transformation looks like. Key, of course, above everything else, is how we love. If our transformation is going to be seen, if the transformation and the work of Jesus, then it begins with the way that we love. Here is our truth for this morning, and then we're going to unpack it based on Paul's words. Love must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. Love must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. But what does it look like? This morning, Paul is going to give us a list. And if we follow the list, we will stay focused on who it is that we're following, which is Jesus. Paul gives us a list that if we are to love well, if love is going to transform us, then this is what it looks like. The list is going to begin in Romans chapter 12, verse 9. It says this: love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. You see, this list that Paul gives us about how love is to be carried out, it's the exacts of the list. And when we gain this understanding, we'll better be able to understand what transformed really means. He begins by saying love must be sincere. This may be better translated as love is to be without hypocrisy. Where you and I, we're not people that are wearing a mask. We're not different people outside of these walls. What is seen on our social media, it reflects the words that we sing in this room. The first part of this list, the word that Paul uses for love is agape. It's the truest and richest form of love. So the love that must be sincere means that it is complete. It flows to all of the areas of our life. But unfortunately, is a little bit sad, and maybe more than a little bit, is this type of love oftentimes can't be found in most churches. When it comes to being a Christian, we have compartmentalized our love to where it has become fractured and selfish. We have divided our love into what is comfortable for us. And so we are quick to respond with love when people agree with us, and we are very slow to respond with love when people disagree with us. As Paul writes here, a sincere love is not a compartmentalized love. It is a love that is true and rich and flows to all areas of our life in interaction with people. The second thing on our list that Paul gives us is to hate what is evil. I remember growing up, my mom and I'm sure probably many of you have said hate is a really strong word. And I would agree. And Paul is communicating it clearly. The word hate, it can also mean to repel or have horror with what is evil. Matt, it's really hard to relate to culture and also disagree with evil. And I would agree. It is hard, but it doesn't mean that we don't do it. We find avenues and we find ways to connect with culture without participating in what is evil. And I know some of us might be saying, well, I don't participate really in evil. I mean, it's easy for us to hate what is evil when it comes to things like terrorism. It's easy for us to hate evil things when it comes to human trafficking or abortion or child molestation. Like, it's real easy for us to hate those things, which should be when it comes to evil. But when push comes to shove, it's not quite as easy when the evil has to do with materialism or narcissism. The funny memes that we share on Facebook. After a long week when we get drunk on Fridays, or when we're home alone looking at porn, thinking there's no repercussions of these actions because we're a little bit more comfortable with them. They don't necessarily have the connotation of evil that the others do. As Paul writes this, it is if we are to love in all areas of our life, that means there's no area in our life for things that are evil. Paul gives us the next item on our list. He says, cling to what is good. Cling to what is good. This has within its language a glue factor. I don't know if you've ever glued two pieces of paper together. If you've ever glued two pieces of paper together and let them dry and then tried to separate the two pieces of paper, it's nearly impossible, right? If the glue is dry, then it has adhered. Like, it's not going to just separate. This is what Paul is teaching us when he says, cling to what is good. Glue yourself to the good things of life. Glue your things to the good things of God, so that way they cannot be detached. If we're going to love agape, this true rich in all areas of our life, then we have to glue ourselves to things that are good. Cling to what is good. You see, love must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. Paul transitions just slightly as this first part of love must be sincere, it must hate what is evil and cling to what is good. It is the word agape in the Greek language, this true rich form. But then Paul shifts a little bit of focus that if our love is going to be sincere, then it also very much flows to each other. And the word that he uses switches to phileo, which is a brotherly love. It's a family love. And so when he says, be devoted to one another. You see, families understand differences, but yet still choose to love one another. Good families have differing ideas, but they still choose to love one another. When family difficulties arise, families are supposed to crash together, adhere to one another, stand alongside one another, not separate. Paul here is saying, listen, if our love is going to be constant and consistent and seen by others, then there needs to be this devotion that does not separate and divide. It does not walk away from when there's a little bit of a disagreement. You see, this is who we're supposed to be as the church. The church is supposed to be devoted to one another. As a Christian family, as a group of people uniting around the cause of Christ, we are to love one another, not cast one another out. It seems like it's easy in our culture that as soon as someone disagrees with us, we just shove them to the side. They become marginalized in our life. This should not be the case as Jesus people. As Jesus people, our love must be constant and consistent when people disagree with us, when people disappoint us, when people fall short. It's in those moments where the church should come together and not cast out, be devoted to one another. Paul continues to give us this list. He says, honor others above yourself. Honor others above yourself. The idea that Paul is communicating is that we should assist in the victory of other people. I know not all of us are basketball fans, okay, but if there is an assist in basketball, the ball is lobbed up and someone jumps up and dunks it. Everybody notices the energy of the dunk, but the energy of the dunk is only possible because of the assist. What Paul is saying here is if we're going to love, then we are people who assist in other people's victories. Which means that if we're on our screen, then we say thank you. If we're on our screen communicating through social media venues, we show others off. We call out other people's gifting and celebrate it. We highlight someone else's love, their service, or selflessness. We listen. We pray for others. I mean, just think about how different our relationships would be if we were constantly celebrating other people's gifting. If we were constantly celebrating other people's wins. Honor others above yourself. Paul continues. He says, don't lose a zeal. Don't lose this spiritual fervor. Keep your spiritual fervor in serving the Lord. In other words, don't lose a burning passion for the mission of Jesus. You and I, we all, as Jesus people, we are called to serve. We are called to live in mission of Jesus, which means that we are constantly going, we are constantly making disciples. But here's the thing, it's not just for one person to do. It's all of us. One person should not do it all, and we can't do it all, but we must all do something for others. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 7. So neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes them grow. As Paul's writing to the church in Corinth, it's not just about one person. It's about all the parts working together, and God is the one that makes his mission grow. But we all play a part. You see, love, it must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ, not just one person, but all of us. Paul continues with the list. He says, be joyful in hope. All the way throughout the New Testament, hope and joy are common themes, but let's be clear. Life as an early Christian, as the New Testament is being written, is anything from easy. I mean, these early Christians, they're facing Roman oppression. They don't like Christians. They're blaming everything on Christians. It's not easy to be a Christian during this time. And so to read Paul's words about being joyful and hopeful, it is not an environment for joy and hope. But what should be true of us is that we should be the most joyful people on the planet, because of the hope that we've been given through Jesus. People should be able to see hope in us. I'm convinced that woe is me Christianity has not fully seen the victory of the cross. And oftentimes when we lose our joy, it's because we have lost our focus on what we really need and what really matters. Find joy. Paul gives us the next item on our list. He says, hold tight. Hold tight. Be patient in affliction. Hold tight to our faith on hard days. He doesn't say that there's not going to be hard days. He doesn't say that every day is going to be easy as a Christian. He says, hold tight. He says, be faithful in prayer. Why? Because it's through prayer. Prayer is the conduit for our strength. Prayer is where we find energy to love well. Prayer, it is where we find the ability to find hope. Prayer is the communication that God gives us to love well, to love consistent, to love constantly. The last thing on our list that Paul says, he says, share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. In other words, bless and serve others. Take care of one another. You see, this is the uniqueness of the church community. The unique part of the community that you and I are a part of is that we take care of one another. Even when everybody else wants to walk away, we're the people that we show up and we stand alongside through difficult days. We pray when everyone else is silent. We stand up for the truth of Jesus when everything feels lost. We take care of one another. Galatians chapter 6 verse 10 says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. Paul says, practice hospitality. Be hospitable to people. Invite them in. 3 John chapter 1, verse 7 and 8, it says, it was for the sake of the name that we went out. That's the name of Jesus. Receiving no help from the pagans, we ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that they may work together for the truth. Love, it must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. And if we are going to live in this type of love, then the list that Paul gives us, it keeps us focused. Not just enjoying maybe what sounds good in life, not just enjoying the moments of life, no matter what the repercussions are. It keeps us focused on the mission of Jesus. It keeps us consistent in our message. If we're going to live as Jesus' people, then our love must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. This week, to help out with this just a little bit, we have created a graphic of this list that Paul gives us, that if our love is going to be constant and consistent, we need to look at it regularly. And so we have created a graphic that if you're a smartphone person, we want to challenge you this week to set this graphic as the background on your phone, which means every time you open your phone up, you see this list. To be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. If you're not a smartphone person, but you have a computer, then you put it as the background of your computer screen. If you're not a screens person at all, you can stop by the church and we've got paper copies that you can hang on your TV, that you can place in your room to see it regularly. You see, love must be constant and consistent for others to see Christ. You see, when we show up with the list that is focused, we receive the results that we're looking for, and others are able to clearly see what the feast looks like if we follow the list. But if we show up with just what sounds good, if we show up just with our personal feelings, if we show up just with everything that makes us feel good, it's hard to get a picture. Not just of who we are, but who we're following. You see, if people are going to be invited to the feast for eternity, they need to recognize who the chef is. There's not a greater opportunity that you and I have to focus on what love looks like than when we share in the feast of communion together. When we sit down and we take a cracker and we take juice and we remember that Jesus went to a cross. He died. He went to a grave for 3 days. He rose again and he invites us into eternity. That was his list. For us, love must be sincere. It must be who we are. And it must be constant and consistent in all areas of our life. This morning as we take communion together, and maybe there's areas of your life that are not loving, and you recognize that. There's areas of your life that you're just doing what feels good right now, but they don't paint the picture of who Jesus is. And maybe this morning, before we take this communion, we bring those before Jesus and say, Jesus, transform. Make these like you so others can see you. Maybe this morning you recognize that I have not treated my brothers and sisters in Christ with love. I've been quick to point out failures. I've been quick to cast out, but I have not stood next to. And maybe this morning, you send them a message. You write them a note. You give them a phone call. You say, my love has not been sincere, and I want to make that right. See, transformation, it's a decision. It's a decision to be like Jesus when others walk away. But as Jesus people this morning, our love must be constant and consistent, because Jesus' love for us, even when it took him to a cross, was constant and consistent.
The highest king would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love.
Crossroads Online, it's been great to be with you this morning. If this is your first time checking us out, we would love to get to know you a little bit more. We'd love to have you fill out the guest form that's above this video in the links, just so we can pray for your family, welcome you. Maybe for your family or maybe for you, you recognize that some of the things we've talked about, I've not been living these out. Maybe you recognize that before you can live out this list, you need to recognize the way that Jesus loves you and give your life to him. And if that's you, then I would love for you to click the follow-up form. Maybe you just need someone to pray for you, someone to follow up with you. Life's hard right now. It's hard to love others because you don't feel like God loves you. Click that follow-up form. Let us know who you are. We would love to pray with you. We'd love to contact you, just be an encourager for you. Church, let us be constant and consistent with our love. Let the love of Jesus move in our lives in such a way that people can see the joy in us. They can see the hope that is found in us, because the conditions of the world don't dictate eternity. The conditions of the world we love through because of the way that love has been shown to us. This week, put the list on your phone. Pray about it. Think about it. Let us love this week constantly and consistently.